2010. Activision fires Jason West and Vince Zampella, the duo responsible for the creation of Infinity Ward and Call of Duty. This occurs a few months after the release of the record-breaking Modern Warfare 2. The duo retaliates with a lawsuit alleging wrongful termination and claimed that Activision fired them to avoid paying hundreds of millions of dollars in royalties and bonuses. Activision fired back with a countersuit, arguing that West and Zampella breached their contracts and were plotting to defect to rival company Electronic Arts, and were planning to take the Call of Duty IP with them. The day before the case, however, both sides reached a settlement. With West and Zampella gone, many members of Infinity Ward would follow, leaving Infinity Ward in shambles. While Sledgehammer Games were brought on to help them finish the Modern Warfare trilogy, they still needed to rebuild their studio. And with their yearly release cycle, Activision would still need another Call of Duty game. During the rebuilding process, Neversoft were brought on to make their own title. But this game would ultimately never see the light of day. This is the story of the Call of Duty game that never happened. Neversoft was founded in 1994, but wouldn't work with Activision until 1998, when they were hired to work on the game Apocalypse, a PlayStation game starring Bruce Willis. It was during this project that Activision tasked them with creating a prototype game centered around skateboarding. This prototype would eventually become 1990's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. This game would be a cultural and commercial juggernaut. Because of the game's success, Activision would fully acquire Neversoft. They would go on to produce 9 Tony Hawk games over the course of 9 years. In 2006, Activision acquired the rights to the Guitar Hero franchise. Neversoft was placed in charge of continuing the series. They would once again go on to make 9 entries as well as a spin-off game titled Band Hero. In 2010, Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock would end up underperforming. Seeing this as a sign of the declining popularity with the rhythm game genre, Activision would shift Neversoft to a support role for the Call of Duty series. In 2008, after the critical and financial success of Modern Warfare, Vince Zampella and Jason West would renegotiate their contracts with Activision, securing a large bonus as well as creative control over the Call of Duty series. However, Activision included a clause that would revert back control of the Call of Duty franchise if the pair were ever fired. In 2010, relations between the two parties began to fall apart. Activision accused West and Zampella of insubordination and breaching their contracts, alleging the pair had been secretly negotiating with rival publisher EA to defect along with several members of Infinity Ward. Because of this, on March 1st, 2010, Activision fired West and Zampella, even going as far as having security escort them out of the studio. This sparked outrage amongst the employees. In response to the firing, West and Zampella sued Activision for wrongful termination and unpaid royalties. Initially seeking $36 million, the sum would later balloon to over $1 billion. Activision countersued, asserting that West and Zampella's actions jeopardized the franchise, including Modern Warfare 3's development, and accused them of conspiring with EA. This legal battle only escalated with allegations of corporate espionage. Court documents revealed Activision's Project Icebreaker, an alleged plan to hack into West and Zampella's emails to find grounds for their termination. During this time, nearly half of Infinity Ward's staff resigned in protest. Many of these employees would later join West and Zampella's new studio, Respawn Entertainment. The dispute would eventually be settled out of court in May of 2012, the day before the trial. With almost half of Infinity Ward gone, they would not be able to finish Modern Warfare 3 in time. Because of this, Activision brought on multiple support studios, including Sledgehammer Games, Raven Software, and Neversoft. Despite their lack of experience in the shooter genre, Neversoft were brought on to work on Modern Warfare 3's Spec Ops mode. With Modern Warfare 3 wrapped up, the question still remained: what's next? While Treyarch was working on their own title that would secure the 2012 release date with Call of Duty Black Ops 2, it was becoming increasingly unclear who would handle the 2013 release. With Infinity Ward understaffed and in no position to make the next Call of Duty game, Neversoft decided to take this opportunity and pitch their own title, a Call of Duty game that took place in the near future but looked to take the franchise to the stars. This title would be named NX1. Last year, the game surfaced online. This would be one of the first times that we would get a chance to see an early dev build of a Call of Duty game. Because of this, we are able to get a relatively good idea of what the game could have been. Starting off with the main menu, it is clear that the game is being built off of Modern Warfare 2. From here, we have three options: Spec Ops, Campaign, and Multiplayer. Unfortunately, only Campaign and Multiplayer are actually functional. Starting with the Campaign, we have a total of 8 missions, these being Border, Visiting Hours, Into the Fire, Winter Anvil, Descent, Hit Hard at Home, Moonbase Assault, and Operation Deadbolt. Starting with Border, we open with a convoy of American forces pushing up to the border of Mexico. We get word from command that there are multiple cartel leaders located at a church just southeast of our location. Before we can make it through the checkpoint, we get ambushed by cartel forces. After our Humvee gets hit with an RPG, we have to push our way up on foot. One thing that is interesting to note is that almost all of the models are from Modern Warfare 2, except for the cartel and the character named Baker, whose character model is from Modern Warfare 3. Moving on, we eventually get pinned down by an enemy technical, before a Blackhawk flies in to provide close air support. You continue to push your way through the streets of Mexico until eventually the mission ends. The mission Visiting Hours opens with our character John Walker, along with Baker and Keen, infiltrating an abandoned hospital. You learn from command that you are trying to locate a high-value target. As you keep pushing forward, you eventually get spotted, leading to the traditional shooting gallery. Eventually, you get pinned down by an MG nest, and you have to push over a vending machine to use for cover. Once behind cover, you have to shoot at a generator in order to shut down a spotlight that's currently illuminating you and your team. As you keep pushing forward, you eventually stack up and prepare to breach one of the hospital rooms. Upon making entry, you find the HVT unconscious and hooked up to life support. Baker radios in that you can't extract him. Command appears to give the order to execute the HVT, which Baker promptly does just before the mission ends. Next is the mission Into the Fire. We open with a prison transport in Indonesia that appears to have been ambushed. Upon regaining consciousness, the 2 officers in the vehicle get gunned down before we realize that this is actually a rescue operation. From here, we fight our way through the streets of Indonesia, fighting through multiple SWAT teams. We keep pushing our way to the extraction point before ultimately the mission ends. Next, we have the mission to Winter Anvil, which sadly doesn't work. But the artwork for the mission depicts some sort of a rocket launch, so it could have seen the player either trying to get to space or trying to prevent the launch. Regardless, not much is known about this mission, so I will go ahead and skip to the next one. The next mission is called Descent. The mission opens with us getting on a train in some sort of a tunnel system. One thing to note is that this is really the first time we get to see some of the more futuristic stuff made for this game. Up until this point, models, weapons, and most things were from previous games. However, this is the first time we really get to see some of the aesthetics that were intended for this game. Getting back to the mission, you fight enemy troops on an adjacent train before making it to the station's control tower. From here, we hear some dialogue from the team about Keen handing off a nuke to some snakes. However, upon making it to the elevator, we come face to face with Keen. He says that he isn't a snake. However, before we get a chance to explain himself, enemy air arrives and destroys the glass, causing everyone to get sucked out through the window. From here, we have to follow Keen to a train to try and escape before the mission ends. Now, a couple things to note. First, the way they said snakes make it almost seem like they're talking about a faction as opposed to an insult, but I could be wrong. Second, it is unclear if Keen is lying, and based upon the context, it could imply that they were planning on having some sort of major betrayal in the story. The next mission is Hit Hard at Home. The mission seems very similar to one of the missions at the end of the Black Ops 2 campaign. The player and his team are flying over the streets of LA in an Osprey before it eventually gets shot down by an enemy AA gun. The team then have to parachute their way to the objective. You push your way through enemy forces in order to provide support to the Secret Service. From here, you have to hold off enemy forces and protect the Vice President. It's interesting that a lot of gameplay mechanics from this mission end up in a later entry in the series being Advanced Warfare. Some characters are even wearing what appeared to be an exosuit. Getting back to the story, once the Vice President has been secured, you push your way to the extraction point. Once there, you hold off enemy forces until you are able to extract. Once again, it feels like they were really wanting this campaign to go all out as opposed to some of the other entries in the franchise. The next mission is Moonbase Assault. We open with our team taking enemy fire before pushing our way into the station. As we make our way to the armory, we see the personnel on the station getting killed left and right. Once we make it to the armory, we finally get a chance to get in the fight. We try and repel the attackers before coming face to face with enemy armor. It looks like this would have been a boss fight of some kind, but unfortunately, the mission ends. The next and final mission is Operation Deadbolt. We infiltrate a skyscraper and make our way up to the roof through the elevator shaft. Once on the roof, we make our way to some sort of a vault. It's labeled as a placeholder, so I don't know what it's supposed to be. Once there, we secure a MacGuffin and leave the building. During our exit, we rappel down the side of the building before making it to the lobby where we escape. And this is where the mission ends. So what happened? Why did this game ultimately never get made? Well, because Activision decided to merge Neversoft and Infinity Ward, and because of this merger, Infinity Ward would be placed in charge of the project. This new title would end up being Call of Duty Ghosts. Had Activision put their full faith in Neversoft, perhaps the future of Call of Duty would have looked very different. But we'll never know. This leads me to my final point. I want to see game studios show off some of their canceled projects. Looking online and seeing the reception to NX1, a lot of people would have liked to have seen this title get released. Additionally, it allows both the game studio as well as the publisher to see the reception around the game and see if there's any interest for it. Perhaps even letting the studio revisit some of these canceled projects. Additionally, it gives us, the community, a chance to take a peek behind the curtain and get a glimpse at what could have been. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and then that way you'll be notified when I upload next. And thank you all for your support on my previous video on the channel, the Halo Retrospective. I never would have guessed that the channel would have hit 1,000 subscribers that quickly, but because of you, we did, and I'd like to thank you all personally. I have been your host, Spectre, and until next time, have a wonderful day.